Hey guys, so very exciting news. The Airbnb IPO is coming up. And in this video, I'm gonna go through everything we know about the IPO, how I think you should actually buy and trade the stock on opening day, as well as why I think this could be one of the best IPOs and one of the best opportunities to make money. So if you do a quick Google search, you'll see that there are lots of different articles out there, some saying to buy Airbnb and some saying not to buy it. Some articles are saying Airbnb is too hot to touch, so avoid the upcoming IPO. And then you also have articles saying Airbnb stock IPO is set to soar 200%, don't set this out. I, however, do have a really optimistic outlook on Airbnb as a company, and I do think that their IPO is priced very reasonably, especially compared to some of the other IPOs that we've seen this year. So basically what's happening is that Airbnb is planning to go public on Thursday, which as of this time is tomorrow, offering 56.5 million shares to investors. These shares are going to be sold on the NASDAQ, and the stock ticker is going to be ABNB. This is a very, very hyped IPO because pretty much everyone knows what Airbnb is. They've probably used Airbnb before, and Airbnb has been talking about having their IPO for at least a couple years now. What they're doing is they're going to be offering their shares for $56 to $60 a piece. This is compared to the previous of what they were trying to sell it at, $44 to $50. So this is like 20% higher. Basically, the bank that they're using, they decided to go more in line with what they think Airbnb could sell for. And honestly, $56 to $60, it's pretty reasonable. I think that is a great valuation for Airbnb. And if they had gone with the lower amount between $44 and $50, that would be quite like devaluing the stock and the company as a whole. So if they do start off between $56 and $60 a share, this means that they could be raising as much as $3.39 billion with their IPO. This year has been absolutely crazy. There have been over $140 billion raised in initial public offerings so far this year. This is actually already higher than the full year record that was set in 1999, and that was the whole dot-com boom. And it's crazy because December, it's normally a quiet time for the IPO market. If you're watching this video, you probably already know that DoorDash is having their IPO today. And then we're also gonna have IPOs of other big companies like Wish and Roblox. So really an exciting time for the stock market. All these great companies are having their IPOs, and it should be interesting to see what happens. So now let's dive into what time Airbnb's IPO is actually set to happen. Now with the SEC, they've basically said, hey, we're gonna start trading at least before 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. We really don't know what the exact time is going to be, but we just do know that it's going to be before 4 p.m. Now, if we take a look at historical past IPOs, we can kind of guess what time they might be going live. If I were to guess, it's not going to be right when the market opens at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's probably going to be a couple hours after that. So what I'm thinking is that around 11 or 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, so aka 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 9 a.m. That is when I expect to be able to trade the stock. If you do want to get in right on time, what I recommend doing is just having your computer on, just constantly be just checking to see your brokerage to see if the Airbnb stock ticker shows up, because really it could be released at any time. We just don't really know. If you do want to buy Airbnb stock right when it comes out, what I recommend doing is waking up early, wake up right when the market opens. So for us people on the West Coast, you're gonna have to wake up at 6:30 a.m. And if you're on the East Coast, then just 9:30 a.m. is when you should be checking constantly. And yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try and trade this on opening day. So I will be at my computer up until the stock is released. Now, right when I see that stock ticker show up on my brokerage account, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna put a limit order. Basically what this is you're telling the brokerage, I'm willing to pay this much, but I'm not willing to pay anything above that amount. So since they're estimating the IPO to be around $56 to $60, and by the way, you guys, make sure you check constantly because this could change. Like this literally could change last minute. They could go for a higher number, they could go for a lower number, even though I don't think that's gonna happen. But this will affect how you trade, and this will affect what price you will set for your limit order. What I recommend doing is set it for something at least $60, right? If it's $58 and they start at $60, then you won't get the trade. What you wanna do is you wanna sort of play it safe a little bit. So what I'll probably do is I'll set a limit order for between $65 to $70. I'm not exactly sure what number I'm gonna choose yet, but I'll have the rest of the day to sort of, think about it and decide what price I want to take that bet on. The higher your limit order, the more likely it is that your brokerage is actually going to be able to execute that trade and get those shares for you. Now, the problem is you don't want to set your limit order too high because that means you could be buying in at a price that is higher than you'd be wanting to pay. So really it's up to you guys. I'm gonna set mine between $65 and $70 just to make sure that I can get in on this IPO right when it is released. Now, like I've mentioned, the Airbnb IPO is very, very hyped. Pretty much everyone in the world is going to know about this IPO and they might be trading it. If you look at the trends, Airbnb is really ranking high right now. Every stock YouTuber is making content about this IPO. So I do think that there are a lot of people that are going to jump in on the stock, which will probably raise the price. And another interesting thing is that normally companies are not going to IPO after a quarter where they see like decreasing revenues. So obviously right now we are in the pandemic, right? There are fewer and fewer bookings for Airbnbs because there is less travel. So Airbnb last quarter did not have a good quarter, right? Their revenues were down, but they were smart with it, you guys. They actually reduced their marketing and advertising budget by a lot. So they weren't hit nearly as hard as people were thinking right when it was March and everything was shutting down. I think there were a lot of people that were freaking out, and as a result, the share price of Airbnb fell drastically. Airbnb chose a really interesting time to IPO because one, it's December. There aren't too many IPOs normally at the end of the year. But two, it's the recovery period, which I think actually is pretty smart, right? They are coming in at a time when the vaccine is pretty much done. They are starting to vaccinate people right now, but it might take at least half a year to a year for most people to get the vaccine. So they're banking on the fact that there is a recovery. People are going to want to get in this on the stock because one, it is a company that everyone knows, and two, because it's a recovery stock. As people get the vaccine, as COVID becomes less and less of a problem, then really everyone's gonna be like, wow, this is a great time to get in on the stock. And yeah, we'll see what happens when the stock is actually released, but I do think that it's going to do quite well. I'm gonna go over some points that I think are very, very strong. I really like this article by Investor Place, so I'm gonna go over some of the things that they have on this article. One reason why I think Airbnb is such a great long-term investment is because they are the platform that everyone uses, right? They actually don't own any real estate, which really makes this an amazing company on paper. Airbnb basically has a monopoly on this whole short-term vacation rental marketplace. I know a lot of people might think that any new website can just pop up and start offering these short-term rentals. But the thing is that it's very, very hard to do so. And when you have one company that is the one that everyone's using, that makes it very, very difficult for other companies to spring up and take market share. As more and more people put their rentals on Airbnb, this means that there's more selection for renters to actually choose from. And it's really just this whole positive feedback loop. So really, I don't see there being any way that a competitor is going to take over Airbnb or something springs up, which really challenges their monopoly. In other words, that they basically don't have any assets, you guys. This is crazy for a company like this. Their whole business model runs on the fact that they are just a marketplace connecting people who have homes to rent out with people who want to rent out homes. They don't need to focus on buying real estate. Instead, they can focus their time and their money on creating a really good customer experience as well as marketing. Now, another great thing for investors that might not be able to get in right away is that Airbnb is allowing their employees to sell up to 15% of their shares when the company lists. This is actually quite different than many other IPOs. For example, Snowflake, they did not let their employees sell their stocks on opening day. They have to wait a full 6 months before they can sell. And as a result, their shares immediately doubled on IPO day. Now, since Airbnb is allowing their employees to sell up to 15% of their shares, this might mean that we won't see as dramatic of an increase in the price on the first day. I do think that a lot of these employees are probably going to take profit on opening day. And as a result, there's going to be a lot of sells from their side, which will offset the demand for the buys on the investor side. Overall, you guys, I think Airbnb, it's a very reasonable priced IPO. And that's why I definitely think that if you believe in this company, it's a good time to get into it. Just note that it won't really be trading on its valuation for the first few days or week because it is such a hype stock. And for most IPOs, especially right now, these things trade on hype. They trade based on the demand versus supply. So obviously I know that there's gonna be so much demand for Airbnb tomorrow, and that's why I do think that these share prices are going to increase quite dramatically. We will likely see some sell-off at some point because historically that is what tends to happen. But this is very hard to time, and that's why I just think it might be really good to try and get in right when the stock is released to the public and just sort of figure it out from there on. We really don't know what's going to happen, but if it goes up a ton, then I might actually take profit and sell some of it and see if it goes back down and re-enter. Overall, I really do think that Airbnb is a great long-term stock. If you really think about it, you guys, consumers, they're getting smarter. They're realizing, whoa, the travel accommodation industry is so big. There is so much money there. Sure, there are all these fancy, gigantic commercial buildings, commercial hotels, and all that stuff. But when it comes down to it, think about how much other real estate there is in the world. And people are getting more smart. They are figuring out ways to make side money, and obviously, Airbnb is such a great way to make extra income, especially if you have an extra room. Even if you're investing in real estate, people are realizing that you can make a really great return on your money if you Airbnb it out instead of renting it to a long-term tenant. And this whole mindset of creating side income, it really was reinforced with the pandemic. People lost their jobs. They realized that they had to sort of diversify their income streams. And I truly do believe that room and house sharing like Airbnb is only going to go up from here. The one con I can think about right now is regulation. We really don't know what's going to happen with the regulation and rules in all of these cities. As of right now, there are cities in the United States where it makes it really hard for people to do Airbnbs. They have really strict Airbnb laws. But these regulations, they aren't optimal, right? Like they serve only to protect other people in industries that are slowly being phased out. It just really makes a lot of sense economically for the whole world to be able to rent out your home. And I truly do believe that society always trends towards optimization, right? If you look at companies like Uber and Lyft, these companies just really took over the whole ride sharing and taxi industry. Taxis were outdated, they weren't the best customer experience, and as a result, that industry was hit really hard. Like I feel really bad for the taxi drivers that were hit by these types of new companies popping up, but society, it just always trends towards optimization, and when you have a company like Airbnb, which is really streamlining and optimizing the whole like housing, short-term housing, vacation rental market, then in the end, these things are always going to win. Okay, cool. I feel like I went off on a lot of tangents here, but overall, I do think that you guys, if you can, buy it and hold it for a long time. There's no need to sell on opening day. If you're able to get in, then just hold the stock for a number of years. This is better also for your taxes because that means you're gonna be paying long-term capital gains instead of short-term capital gains. For me, I'm gonna take a little bit of a risk. I'm going to try and buy in right when the IPO is launched, see what happens. If there are good profits to be taken, I'll probably sell and try and get back in if there is a dip in prices. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the whole Airbnb IPO. That's how I'm going to play it tomorrow. And hey, if you guys want some free stocks, make sure to sign up for WeBull and get your 4 free stocks when you deposit $100 or more. I'll put a link to it in the description below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this. I make a ton of content about personal finance, investing, and entrepreneurship. Thanks so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.